everyone, it's Michelle with michellegart.com, and I just wanted to show you a little bit behind the scenes of me working on two paintings. So I've got the camera kind of going over the work space, so you won't really see me. What I'm working on today is, excuse the glasses, they're my prisms. I'm doing another round of those. This is actually wood panel. So this is what wood panel looks like. It comes in two different thicknesses. So it comes in, this is a thinner thickness. This is also wood panel. And this is 2-inch. So it comes in a couple different varieties. Actually, what I'm using to put stuff on is also wood panel. So I started using wood panel a couple years ago. Just to see if I liked it or not, and sometimes it's kind of cool to use because there's no give, and sometimes it really sucks to use because there's no give. So it really depends on what I'm creating to decide whether or not I'm going to use it or not. So every artist is different in terms of what they use as canvas instead of not always using canvas. For my figurative works, I prefer canvas or watercolor paper, which sometimes I then do put on panel. But for these, like my abstracts and some of my other paintings, I really kind of like using the panel because something like this has, you can't really maybe see this, it's actually, it's called tar. It's clear tar, so it's a medium. And I could have like added paint to it to make it a color, but in this case I made it clear. And so if I put this on canvas, it's still okay, but it might crack a little bit, you know, with that much of it on. And so for me, I would prefer to use something that's more solid, that's panel. And so that's why I chose panel. It's just a choice. It's just an option. So what I'm going to do now is I already put 2 coats here. So this used to look like this. Okay, like in terms of the background, it was, I treated the paper with my special secret recipe to make it look old. And then I put some, then I put the tar. So this is currently drying. It's almost dry, but that's why it's a little bit cloudy still. So when you first put it on, it looks white and cloudy, and then once it begins to dry, it will be totally clear like this. So this takes about a day though to dry, and so since I have, you know, all these different sides, each one takes a day to dry. So these paintings are time intensive because you literally have to wait for things to dry. And that's always the case with anything, but with these especially, when something takes an entire day to dry, that really makes it a little more difficult to get things done. So so now what I'm going to do, this has only had 1 layer of paint on it, and I want it to have 2. So I do this, which I know seems really simple. And now I'm taking like a wet cloth and I'm going over the parts, the raised parts. So the whole point of the tar is that it would be raised. And sometimes you have to redo it like a 3rd time because I end up accidentally wiping off paint I don't want to wipe off. But do you see the difference? Like this part I haven't done yet and this part I have. So so this is just, again, very time intensive. And it's sticky, which is that noise. Yep, so I'm gonna have to redo that, but so there we have it not covered. So that, yep, see, but then I got stuff over here. this side. Because I always try to make it kind of go one side to the other so you don't have to frame it. Again, you know my thing about frames. So I try to make the sides as pretty as possible so it is actually art and you don't have to frame it, but that way, so you can see this follows the curve, or really the corner. So, but now this has to dry, kind of upright, not completely upright, so that, and then I can wait and I can do another side. So it's a very time-intensive process. I'm going to set this over here. So I thought I'd do maybe a little bit more of this one. I think I'll start with this. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing, and maybe you'll see it a little bit better because, sorry, I'm also a bit of a vampire these days with my eyes, but so normally if I wasn't trying to allow the music to show through, I would use some gesso. There's gold gesso that they make for this, but this I actually added to intentionally make it a little bit more translucent. I actually added some glazing liquid to my Nova Gold, and so that way I end up with a pretty translucent paint regardless. So I just want to do a little bit at a time because that way I don't have as much paint drying on top. This will get a little bit of gold on it. It's just part of that process, but not tons. That's the idea. So that's why I stop. And then it's dry here today, which I guess is probably pretty obvious given the amount of forest fires we're having, but it's just dry, so that makes the paint dry faster, which means I have to work pretty quickly so that I don't have too much paint drying. Okay. I got it on the side. Okay. So this is the less technical part. The part that like makes me nervous is always trying to put the tar down, and that's why I didn't do a video, because then, you know, when you're trying to do right brain stuff, trying to talk at the same time can be a little too much. Because the tar, obviously, you want it to, it's really a gel, but I mean, it's the gel, you really want it to be, you know, only where you want it. You don't want it to be too thick, and you know, you need it to be what it is, and it doesn't always work out how you would prefer. So that is really the stressful part when I'm doing these. This part is probably the easiest, other than the fact that it's a pain because you have to have a really gentle hand to not also wipe off the paint that you just put on the paper. So that's that. So one coat. I'll probably let it dry before I do another side. Okay. So anyway, that's a little behind the scenes of me doing my, these are called, I call these like my heart, I'm sorry, my love song hearts. So they're music sheets. They really are music sheets, and then I age them, hand decal them, which takes a little bit of time. So, but that, I mean, I don't like to have that really sharp edge that happens when you have something that's been printed out, or even if you take something from a book, like it's gonna have 2 or 3 edges that are sharp. And so I try to literally take something, fold it, rip it very gently so that I get a little bit of a softer edge, and that's called hand deckled. So I hand decal, and sorry, see, I'm very in my right brain right now, and that's when you know that, then it's really hard to just talk. If you go to an art class, you'll see like a lot of spaciness, and it's just because you're in flow and you're really on the right side of your brain, and talking is a left side more logical thing. And I understand there's not technically a right and a left side, but there are parts of your brain that you use more when you're being creative and really in flow versus when you're not. And so when you're really in flow and you get out of the way, you aren't thinking. That's really a big one. And so obviously talking and doing stuff like after an art class, you'll see, you know, women try to find their keys and they're holding their keys, and it's because they really need to go grab a cup of coffee and like come down from art class and like be in the world a little bit, because you get very much in flow. And in order to be in flow, you have to disengage that logical left side of your brain that is making you think and critique and judge. So anyway, so sometimes it's difficult to do videos because I'm trying to be in flow, and yet I need to engage the part of the brain that gets in the way of being in flow. So anyway, these are my music sheet love song heart paintings. This particular one is by Stevie Nicks. It is Leather and Lace. It is actually a really awesome song. I had somebody who asked for a commission for this song, and I had never really looked at the lyrics, and I thought the lyrics were really awesome, so I decided to do a second one. It is not like the commission. The commission had some added elements to it that were just for them, but I just wanted to do kind of my standard music sheet love song with this piece of music because I found it really beautiful. And a little sad if you know the backstory of Stevie Nicks and Don Henley. It's a little sad, but which I was also before I did the commission, I was researching all that. So anyway, I just thought it was a really cool love song and decided to do another music sheet heart based on that. And so it's not done. So I need to do, just like the other one, I'll need to do gold. I'll have to do gold on all the sides. This still has to dry a little bit. I should actually stand it up like this for a little bit more. And then I'll do another couple, probably 4 or 5, depending, coats more of the heart as well. It's just going to depend on what I decide to do. But I will not do that until I've got at least 1 coat of the gold, and that's just because this is paper. So unlike normally when I do, when I work on something else, like my big paintings like this. This has been gessoed, right? That's actually what happened is this was gessoed, and then I'm going to put it next to my other one. I decided that I didn't like the size, and I had to go buy a different size. That happens sometimes. So, you know, that's painted. It's gessoed a couple times. Then I put down a base color after that. So before I even start, it's got 3 or 4 additional layers besides the layers that came with it to protect it. So with this, these are literally paper. So the reason I don't want to do too much that requires water is I don't want to make the paper too sensitive. And so once I add a little bit of this paint to it, and then I can drip water like I normally do to create to literally create the drips like you see, it'll protect the paper a little bit, because we need to make sure, you know, the integrity of the painting is important. So that's just the process. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.